with Niki at Pulpitations.
That's right.
Here in Dalby Forest in the courtyard. We're going to have a look at your gallery and we're going to look at all the wonderful things that you create here, but I'm really interested at the beginning just to find out a bit more about how you got into this. What's the roots of it?
My background is in textiles, so I trained as a hand embroiderer originally, and then I went into machine applique work. I worked at Designers Guild in London, so I've always had a creative background working with fabrics and other related materials. And we went to Italy for 7 months after we were married, and so living in a beautiful Italian northern city was very inspiring to my work. And I carried that through until we had a shop in the Cotswolds in Stow-on-the-Wold back in the late 80s, where I produced machine appliqued towels and all sorts of gift items, coordinated work. And we had that for about 5 years. So that's the sort of background of where I started and where I moved on. Following that, I then went on a week's course in papermaking. It was something I was sort of interested to have a go at. And I was just hooked. It was a 6-day course and a very inspiring tutor that we had. And from then on, that was where my interest started. And I began to use paper and textiles combined. So I was doing a lot of stitching onto paper and trying out different pulps. And just producing pictures and cards and things like that. So I carried that on for many years, just as a part-time job, really, doing other things. And my husband had an office upstairs in Dalby Courtyard here, and one of the studios became available. There are 5 craft workshops here, and so I thought, shall I have a go? Shall I, sort of go straight in and have a go. So in October 2008 was when I started my workshop here in Dalby, and it wasn't perhaps the best of times because it was the start of recession, and I did struggle to begin with, but persevered, and 4 years later I'm still here.
And doing well.
Yes, it's very much growing at the moment, and despite the difficult times and a lot of changes in the courtyard, because there are no longer 5 craft workshops here, it's always been quite difficult to survive because it's seasonal, and people come into the forest, they're either biking or walking and not expecting to find a studio like mine here. But having said that, I do get a lot of visitors, and from the visitors other business comes around. So I'm very much surrounded by bikes here. There's one bike company that has a workshop next door and a studio, a workshop and a showroom next door, and the bike hire. And so I'm sort of sandwiched between bikes. But that's no bad thing, because cyclists and walkers are interested in other things.
And often I guess that those kind of outdoorsy people will also have an interest in sort of environmental, green, sustainability type things as well. And
yes.
Does that marry up, do you think?
It does, very much so, very much so. And my work has developed in that it's gone towards the sustainability, looking into ways that I can recycle everyday objects, different papers. And so I've spent certainly the last year really trying to develop that, and looking into different ways of using different items, incorporating different items, as well as not just recycled items, but objects in nature from around in this environment. And that is very much encompasses what I do.
And do you feel that there is we're looking out here through your lovely door onto the courtyard there, and they've got the new sort of forest garden. Do you feel that that's part of the sort of a growing ethos within Dalby Forest as well, that there is a movement in that direction?
Yes, definitely. There's quite a few projects that have taken place and are being planned. The garden, the edible garden out there is it's beautiful to see it growing, and I've started using some of the plants, some of the leaves and vegetation from there, and starting to incorporate that into my work. And I very much like to do a range of pictures that do represent the garden. So that to me has been a real bonus.
So here, as well as having a gallery, obviously it's your workshop too, and I guess that's good in the sense that you know when it's quiet with visitor wise, you can just crack on.
Yes, so between about April and October, it gets busier obviously as the season gets to the height. So I do get a lot of visitors in. I like to spend time with people when they come in, and I have my showroom area here, and I also have the tanks of pulp out, so anyone can have a go at making a piece of paper and decorating it and taking it away with them. Through the winter months, then I tend to use the whole studio to work in. It's a lovely space, it's very light, it's very airy, it's warm, and you know, I can then really sort of do my experimentation and creating new pieces of work and new ideas. Right, so for paper making, ideally you need an electric blender. If you don't have one, then there are alternative ways of making the pulp, but this just makes it really quick and just saves a lot of processes. You need a tank or a bowl or a container for your water. You need newspapers to absorb water. You need some household cloths, as long as they're felted cloths, and the paper making screens. To make your pulp, this is all recycled. I collect anything from the recycling bin. And in here we've got magazines and coloured receipts, Kit Kat wrappers, birthday wrapping paper and envelopes, school exercise books, raffle tickets, streamers, paper bags.
Right.
Absolutely, there's even a train timetable here, and a stamp book.
So glossy is fine because I
glossy is fine. Yes.
Yeah.
So you could use, you know, the corrugated paper like that. That's from an old school display board, to something glossy like that,
right.
to the raffle ticket that's really thin. It doesn't really matter. I'm looking for colour.
Right.
So when I'm looking at magazines, I'm going for a predominant colour. So you've got the sort of bluey green colour there. If you've got blue on one side, red on the other, then you will get mucky colours.
Oh, okay.
So as long as it hasn't got a plastic coating or a wax coating, then that's fine. I then separate my colours. This is my green bag. So as you can see in here, anything that's got those colours go into here. Now let's just take a piece of paper. We're going to tear this. Now the paper has got a grain, so we'll tear it this way. Do you see? It's not It's not tearing right.
Yeah.
So we're going to tear it the other way. And this is just the quickest way of tearing your paper. And once we've got it into strips, is to tear it into stamp size pieces. You can use a shredder, but if you use a one-way shredder, you're going to end up with great long strips that you've then got to either tear or cut. If you've got a cross shredder, then it will obviously cut your paper into fairly small pieces, but it's much better to just rip it. You've got the natural edges. I've got some in here that's already been torn, and we'll put a handful in here. About a large handful is fine. We're going to put the lid on, and we're going to blend it.
And that's just water, nothing else, no
just
secret ingredients.
Water and paper, no glues, no dyes, nothing else, just the water and the paper. Now that's quite a pale sort of a colour, so we might want to put in something a wee bit stronger. I've got a nice birthday envelope here, so I'm going to tear this up. Now envelopes don't always tear the same way as ordinary paper does. Sometimes they will tear crossways.
And avoid the gummed elements of an envelope?
The gummed elements don't really matter. When you're recycling on a large industrial scale, then obviously you don't want the gum, you don't want the sellotape, you don't want the staples. With handmade paper, it's because it's for a decorative purpose, it doesn't matter if you've got some gum. If you've got some sellotape on a piece of paper, the sellotape will just float to the top of the tank and you can take it out.
Right.
So this will give us a little bit more colour. And you can colour mix, which is what I find really exciting. So we're going to just whiz that. That has changed it a little bit in colour, and also you get the little flecks of the bright green. Now I could also add some yellow into there if I wanted and get yellow flecks, or I could add some blue into there and get a nice aqua colour. So that is your basic pulp. Now you will want 2 jugfuls of this. We'll just pour this in here. Now this is filled up, this tank is filled about half full of water. I've already got some here that's been liquidised, so we'll put some in. Right, I'm just going to talk about my frames a minute. These are made from recycled wood, and the advantage of that is that they're well seasoned and they don't warp, and obviously environmentally friendly. They've got the joins there, so no staples in those. And this one, this is called the mould, that's called the decal. This one's got a very, very strong, fine mesh on it, nylon mesh. And this is really tough. It's got very, very small holes per inch, and also it doesn't stretch when it's wet, it goes really tight. So the staples are underneath, the mould goes there, and the decal goes on top, and you hold it like that. Now the first thing you need to do is to give the pulp a good stir around, because the pulp will always sink down to the bottom of the tank. So you want a nice even stir, and this is where paper making is wonderfully relaxing. It's very calm, so if you're feeling stressed, there's nothing better than a session of paper making. Now I'm going to hold my frames like that, quite tight, and I'm going to dive them down to the very bottom of the tank and lift it out. And the water's going to go through. And when it's settled, I'm just going to tip the frames to one corner to let the water run out.
And it's beautiful already.
Yeah.
I mean, just you see all the different colours in there.
Yes, you've got a lot of colour, a lot of texture. And depending on how much texture you want is to how long you blend it in the liquidizer.
Oh, right. So a short blend, obviously,
Yeah.
you get more.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Right, so it's stopped running there, it's just dripping a little bit. I'm going to take the decal from the mould.
Look at that.
And you're just starting to see the shape of the paper. It's still very, very wet. Now at this point it won't fall off. It's attached itself to the screen and all those fibres are already joining up. That now goes onto the cloth. And I'll just get my sponge if I could. Thank you. And if I press that down, you can see there's a lot of globules of water. So I'm going to mop that water up and squeeze it out into the tank. And you can press down quite hard because the mesh is so tough and the holes are so fine. You're not picking up the fibres through the mesh.
Now you've done this thousands and thousands of times, but do you still get a thrill out of producing a piece of paper and seeing that each one is totally different.
Oh, yes. I never ever tire of it. You never know how your paper's going to turn out. It's very exciting. Now, I've got as much water as I can out of there. I'm just going to lift my screen up.
Look at that.
Simple as that. And there is your piece of recycled paper.
Brilliant. You said it was quick and easy.
It's very, very quick and easy. Now this then stays on the cloth to dry. It can dry open like that, or you can put another cloth over the top and put some newspapers on that and build up your pile of paper. Or you can decorate it. And I've got a few bits and pieces here. I've got some used tissue paper from gifts that's just gone through my little hand shredder. I've got paper napkin that was crumpled up, just cut it up into squares, and some bits of leftover crepe paper from a craft project. I've got some lavender from my garden. It smells lovely in the paper. I've got some honesty from a friend's garden and the seeds. I've got these angelica seeds which have just come from the hedgerows all around the forest. There's plenty of them. And a few bits of rose petals in here that have been dried. You can use anything. You can use anything from crayon sharpenings to bits of ribbon and string, anything textile. And fresh leaves, pressed leaves, dried leaves, flowers, absolutely anything.
So when you're out and about, you're always kind of, I could use that, spotting new things.
Always. Just going on a little walk around here, you can pick up feathers, you can pick up bark, you can pick up leaves, herbs, all sorts. So I'm now going to put a few bits on here. Now, if you put paper onto the wet paper, you can see that it will absorb and stick straight away. So we'll just put a few of these just to show you. They won't fall off when the paper is dry. So we'll just put a few of those there. Now, if you were to put one of these honesty seeds on here, it will press down to a certain extent, but when it dries, it can't be guaranteed to stay there. So we'll just put a couple of those on. Oh, that's got 2. In fact, it's got 3. That's the magic of nature, isn't it? Now, that one's not wanting to stick at all, and we'll put a few seeds.
I mean, I've seen greeting cards that have, they said when you finish with a greeting card, you can go and put it in the garden, go and bury it in the earth, because it's full of, it's been handmade with wildflower seeds, and it's just lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, you can either put your seeds into the paper, tear your paper up and bury it, or a better way is if you've got a thin layer of pulp over the top, you can just brush the top layer off and your seeds fall off. I'll show you that in a minute.
Could you blend, it's probably a stupid question, but could you blend the seeds in when you're making the paper?
You can. Now you can add these little bits of lavender or seeds or whatever actually into the pulp, and then when you scoop your frame in, you're lifting it all up together.
Right.
So you can do that. But some of these seeds, when you actually look at them closely, you don't notice when they're growing. They're wildflowers, and they look dead at this time of year because the flowering season is over. And yet, when you actually look at them closely, they're exquisite. Now, we want to put a thin layer over that to hold all those bits down. If I was to do another layer the same thickness, it would hide your pattern. So this time I'm going to take just my mould frame. I'm just going to get a little bit of the pulp. I'm just going to stir it around a bit. You just want some of those fibres just to float up to the surface. And I'm just going to slide it in and out. And turn it round. And slide it in and out. And it doesn't matter if you haven't got an even covering. Those little fibres are just going to attach themselves to the paper below. And I'm going to get my sponge and I'm just going to press that down, squeeze it out. And so you'll get a thin covering just anchoring these pieces down.
Right.
You can see you've got a few little bits there, and that is just enough to hold it down. And there is your piece of decorated paper, which you could then use to make a card, make a bookmark, the cover of a book for using for scrapbooking. And your frame itself doesn't limit you to the size of paper, because you can make another piece and just overlap it there and overlap it there. Or if you want a smaller piece, you just get a ruler, lift the paper up, tear it off, and you've got natural edges.
Oh, right.
So that does not limit you. You don't need to have a bigger or a smaller screen necessarily. Once you've got to this stage, you could add another colour, and you can overlay another colour. So you could have a red piece of paper on one side and a green on the other, or you could build up different layers, different shape frames with different pulps.
I mean, the great thing about it is you can be really experimental, can't you?
You can. And you don't have to be, you can be 3D as well. You can build your layers up. You can add bits of textiles and whatever to make your paper more interesting, to create a collage almost. So when you've got to the end of your paper making session, you might, if you've got the space, you might want to keep your pulp in your tank. It will keep for up to about a week. Then it will start to go slimy around the edges, and then you know that it's not going to last much longer. When it goes off, it smells very bad. What you can do is you can strain it off through either a muslin cloth or a kitchen cloth through a colander, and strain most of the water off, and you will get that is the pulp that has been strained off, and it's very soft and mushy. You can keep that in the fridge for up to 3 weeks. If you want to keep it and then when you want to put it back, you can just loosen it into the water and it's back to its right consistency. If you want to keep it for longer than that, you can squeeze the water out in a muslin cloth or in a kitchen cloth and into a small ball like that, and then let it dry. So it's really hard.
It's a piece of art on its own.
Yes, so you can store your pulp balls like that.
Right.
When you want to use it again, you just pop it into the blender with some water, let it bubble up, blend it up, and you're back to the same pulp. So it's one full cycle. You're not wasting any of your pulp at all. And also you don't want to put your pulp down the sink because it will block your drains. So that is an extension of all the recycling, the sustainability. You just go on using it and using it.
And they're just vegetable dyes, aren't they? So the water itself won't be polluting as it goes down the drain.
No. It's the dyes that have come out of the recycled papers. So there's no chemical dyes added at all. So when you strain it through, you're only getting the water coming through. You're keeping your pulp there.
Right.
Now with this soft pulp, which is very loose, what you can do is you can draw an outline, and you can, I've got here this board. This is something that I've developed called Pulp Collage, and you just draw out an outline. You might want to do just a geometric design or an animal or a scenery, and you just place your wet pulp down onto the J-cloth, keeping it really close together, especially where you join the colours. and then just let it dry, and it goes really hard. There's no glue in here, there's no dyes in here at all. And you can also add buttons and beads and feathers and things like that. These three here have been done by Year 6 children in a school, and you can see the colours are really very bright here, and again no dyes have been added at all. They've just been taken from the recycled paper that's been torn up. So that's another way that you can use recycled pulp.
So I'm sure that anybody watching this film, like I am now, is going to be inspired, because it is incredibly easy, isn't it? Once you've got the basic, yes. Kit. So tell us about you, because you supply these, don't you?
I do, yes. I found that people were very interested in paper making, and there aren't that many kit suppliers or frame suppliers online. You certainly can't find them in the shops. I found that a lot of frames were very, very expensive. They were the professional frames with brass joints and metal meshes. So I developed, alongside a wood turner, a local wood turner, to make up my frames and my kits. So he makes up the frames from recycled wood, and I cut and cover them with the mesh frames. And they come with the sponge and the scourer, which is for cleaning the cloth, so you don't need to wash the cloths at all. And these are a thicker cloth that are slightly firmer. They last a lot longer than the thinner kitchen cloths. And so I produce those in different sizes. So there's the square starter kit and the A5 kit. A larger kit for those that have had a bit more experience with paper making, and then a card kit so that you can make the outside of the double fold of your card, or you can make the decorative bit to go on the front of the card.
And they really are, low cost, because this is the only investment you're going to need to make.
That's right. That's right. So they retail from £13.50 for your basic kit. Once you've got that kit, you don't really need anything else, because you're using recycled paper, you're using newspapers. And so once you've got that, and a washing up bowl or a storage box or an underbed box, then you're away. You always have to remember that the larger the frame, the larger your container. So you need to have space to lift those frames down.
Right. And these kits are obviously available here. Can people mail order them as well from you?
Yes, they can, yes.
Via your website?
Via my website, yes.
Okay.
Yes, so they are available. I go to quite a few events. The one that's coming up is Wild About Wood at Castle Howard Arboretum, and that's a 2-day event. And it's anything connected with wood and associated crafts. And I have a stand there. And you can come along and have a go at making a piece of recycled paper and decorating it, and then we wrap it up in newspaper and you can take it away with you. I also do choose to reuse events. There's one coming up in Scarborough in November, beginning of November, and again that's all sustainability, recycling, and in textiles and all sorts of other crafts. I also go to schools to do workshops, and organisations like the Cubs and the Guides and the Brownies. I go to youth groups, care homes, holiday clubs.
Wow. So do you go along with a whole load of kits, or do the schools have to get those in advance, or how does it work?
I take along all my equipment. So every child will have a tank of pulp, will have screens, will have the sponge, and they'll have their own space. So they're not, unless it's a very short session, they will have all their own equipment to use, which I will take along to a school. And that it works better if they each have their own equipment.
So at the end of the session, they'll all have their own bits of paper.
That's right. And then they've got their own paper, which they might want to put on a display board, or they might want to use it for another project. And they love it. It's something completely different they've not done before, and it's a new skill, and it's doable with all people, with all children, whatever their ability or disability. it's something that they can achieve and get the hang of very quickly, because it's very simple. And also it's magic. It's magic to children and adults, because you've got this bag of rubbish and you've turned it into something beautiful in a very short space of time. You can actually get your equipment out. You can make a piece of paper from start to finish in about 10 minutes. And there's not many art and craft activities that you can do so quickly that you don't have to do preparation for. And I find that especially with young children, they're mesmerised and they just get into it straight away and they love it.
And also, I think the thing that struck me as well, Niki, is that this is such a great thing to make for gifts for people.
It is.
And so often people, you go out and you buy gifts, but it's so much obviously more special if somebody made it. For children especially, that can be great, can't it?
Yes, it is, because they feel they've achieved something, they've created something that's unique. Right, I've got a board here that I take to all my demonstrations and workshops. And it's ideas of things that you can do with recycled paper. We've got up here the colour wheel. Just gives you an idea of the wonderful colours you can make from recycled paper. I've got a few of the samples in here. And I can mix the pulps for whatever workshop you want to do. So this was for an autumn workshop. So the colours that complement all the lovely golden leaves and things like that. I recently did a workshop for a school that was doing a project on ammonites, so I mixed all the colours up, very earthy colours and some bright colours, so that it tied in with the work that they were doing. You could put all sorts of things into paper. This one up here has got fruit tea, so when I've had a fruit tea, I keep the tea bag, dry it out, and then I've got a store of tea bags, of tea leaves of different colours. Down here we've got a little bowl that's got crumbled cork in it, so I've actually put the cork into the blender with the pulp. This one's got some onion skins and seeds in it. You can put anything like that actually in with your pulp when you're blending it. I've even got this piece of paper here is actually recycled egg box. And I've actually included some of the eggshell from the eggs that were inside the box. This one over here is 2 sheets of paper, and in between I've laid bits of string and then torn the string out. Recycled newspaper, you can get some wonderful effects. If you don't blend your newspaper up too much and you select a colourful page, you can get this wonderful, it's just beautiful, the patterns on it. Here we've got some very, very fine powdered glitter, and I've put masking tape across the screens. You can start to get stripes or, checks and things like that.
Ah, right, yeah.
Yes. By using the screen and doing top layers, you can use part of the screen. So we've got lots of colours overlaid here, which to build up sort of a lot more like a collage.
Right.
This piece of paper here has been left out in the rain on the screen, so you've got this wonderful effect. And you can use other things like a loofah, slice of loofah, and that's been dipped.
They become works of art in their own right.
They do,
don't they?
yes. Another technique here is you wind some thread around a screen in both directions, dip it into the pulp, let it dry, cut it off the screen, and you've got this wonderful structure. Depending on what yarns you use and how thick the pulp is, you get a different result every time. And 3D, you can mould. That's a circle of pulp, a circular screen that's made a round piece of paper, and that's been moulded around a pot. So you don't have to keep everything flat.
Right.
Little rows up there as well. It's been just wrapped around. So there's no limits at all as to what you can do.
And these bowls here that you sell are just fantastic, and some of them got
tax discs
in
them.
Tax discs
yes,
in the bottom.
Yes. And this one here has got it's got baked bean wrappers in the actual paper, and a little bit of baked bean wrapper at the bottom.
So these you have a special mould to create this
yes,
bowl
I,
shape.
I do.
Are they
just
available, or can you just sort of do
no?
that
You
yourself?
can do that round any bowl or any dish that you choose.
Right.
Yes, so that's just, it's another technique. Then I've got some papers here that this is lavender paper, so the lavender's actually been put into the recycled pulp, and so the paper smells of lavender, and that's wrapped around a lavender soap.
Oh, what a brilliant gift.
So you know, that's a nice gift item. It's just an A5 piece of paper that you can use for wrapping. If you make a larger sheet of paper, you can use it as wrapping paper on its own. And down here I've got, it's an art book, an old art book that I had, and I've done a cover for the front, and I've used parts of an old earring. That's a label from an item of clothing, an old buckle.
So these could be really, I'm just sort of thinking of memory things here, couldn't they? They could be
yes, very much so. I do a lot of handmade books that are made from recycled paper, and this one here, where it's actually got the seeds in the paper, and this one has got Japanese stab binding, and so this has got tea leaves in it, and also some of the angelica seeds. And those sheets of paper have been pressed flat before they've been put into the book.
So to make your own book, you get some card and then put the
thick mounting board, and
stick the paper on the top.
And you stick your paper on the top.
Brilliant.
So that's another idea that you can make. You can make a simple folded book as well.
Well, Niki, it's been absolutely fantastic coming here to Pulpitations. I'm really excited. I'm going to buy a kit before I leave today. I think it's absolutely fantastic for people to get involved in making their own paper and recycling.
Yes,
along the way.
Yes.
So thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and showing us the beautiful things here.
Thank you very much. Thank you.